today, and my title is, Now I Can Say I've Seen It All. So last Saturday I was driving right down here on College coming from the bank, and it was about midday, and I was stopped at College in Alameda. It was a red light. I was about 3 cars back, and I'm talking to a homie on the phone, and I said, we were talking, and the light turned green, but we don't move, and I look ahead, there's a motorcycle cop blocking the traffic. I said, there's something going on, like a parade or something. No, it's a gang of bikes, I'm telling him on the phone. No, it's weird. It's like 300 bikes. It's like, and they all seem to be wearing the same thing. I go, oh my God, they are wearing the same thing. Nothing at all. They were butt naked. They were barefoot from the neck down. And I'm telling him this, and he goes, well, now, gee, you can say, now I've seen it all. And that has nothing to do with my thought for the day. I just thought I'd share it because it was surreal. We can't see it all, we want to see more. A lot of times here we say everybody's a whole lot more than the worst things they've ever done. Sometimes we say around here you can't judge a book by its cover, but you also can't judge a book by its first chapter. And nobody wants to be reduced or limited or determined or identified only by one thing that they had done, or a mistake they had made, or a rap sheet, or an account of crimes and things. Nobody wants to be reduced to that. We're a complex, densely populated forest, and in the God's eye view is aerial. It's like, I see the whole thing. I see the whole forest. Nobody would think they'd seen the forest if they'd just seen 1 or 2 or 3 trees. No, you've just seen isolated trees, but the whole forest, well, that's quite the view. And here at Hoboy, of course, enemies work side by side with each other, and that's always a challenge, but everybody comes in here and they go, I hate that guy. I used to shoot at that guy. And then within really a short amount of time, I remember a homie said to me about his enemy, he goes, yeah, I guess I just needed to see his insides. So that's really the aerial view. The higher up you go, the more you can see of the forest, and you can have reverence for how complex people are. There aren't 2 sides to every story. There's like 93 sides and angles and things to see. We want to be able to see more, even though we can't see it all. Once there was a homie here who worked in the bakery, had a gang of provocative tattoos. One of his tattoos on his cheek was of his body of his gang. And, it was not of his gang, it was his enemy's gang, and it was crossed out with a tattoo, very elaborate. And then he ends up working in the bakery right next to the guy from this gang. And after weeks and weeks of working with him, he went into tattoo removal and he said, I want this off. And the next day he went working, and he turned to the guy and says, I'm getting this off because of you. You're good people. And that just means he's had a higher view and allowed him to be compassionate and understanding and reverent for how complex people are. The higher you go, the better the view. You can see the whole forest, not just a couple trees. Years ago, I knew a neighborhood gang that would smoke PCP quite a bit, and so they'd go up the hill to what we called the clock store. It was a store that had a big old clock on it. They'd score PCP, and then they'd calmly walk down the hill, go to the projects. And this one time, 3 of them went up the hill, scored PCP, and then they smoked it there. And because they did, they ended up taking a shortcut to the projects, and they ran across the 101 freeway. One of them, a guy named Louis, was sent to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, the doctor said to me, he said, wow, I've never seen a body hit with so much impact by a car and live. That was the good news. Bad news was that his right leg was completely shattered and his left arm was just cleanly ripped off his body. So I spent the whole night in the hospital. The next day I was desvelado and kind of in a bad mood, and I was walking in the projects and I walked past a wall of gang members from the enemy gang of Louis. And I say hi and I keep walking. I hear a real tall, lanky guy named Puppet go, I'm glad that shit happened to Louis. And he's ha ha ha, they're all laughing. And I was tired, I was in a bad mood. And I came back and I knew I wasn't supposed to put him on the front page, but I didn't care. So I got in his face and I said, you know, Nico, I love you like you're my own. And I love Louis. Don't ever talk that way in front of me again. I was pissed. So I stormed off and I could hear him say, Spin Sunji. And other guys in the group were going, don't be mad, G. And Mongo's, I was mad. The next day I'm driving out of the parking lot and I see this kid Puppet, and he flags me down and he says, can you give me a ride to the back of the project to see my lady? I said, sure, get in. And he says, where are you going? To the hospital? To visit Louis? Calladito, he doesn't say a word. We get to the projects, he shakes my hand, thanks me, gets out of the car. Then he rushes back into the car and he says, hey, do me a favor. You tell Louis, when you see him right now, that Puppet from Fulano Gang says, I hope he gets better. I said, I will. Then he gets out of the car, he comes back in, he says, don't tell my homies I said that. Yeah, well, your secret's safe with me. The higher you go, the more you see. We want to see as God sees. We want to see the whole forest. We don't want to jump to conclusions. We want to say, well, that mistake he did, or that scandalous thing she said, or that meltdown he had yesterday. Nobody wants to be reduced to one thing, to one tree. There's a whole forest there. So we want to be reverent for how complex everybody is. And then maybe someday we'll be able to say, now I can say, I've seen it all.
Really?